Hey everybody, this is Mike. Welcome back to my shop. I thought I'd do a quick overview, give you a down and dirty review of my new snowblower. I recently purchased a Toro PowerMax 1028OHXE model. O is for the overhead valve engine, H is for hand warmers, X is for the power steering, which basically is just levers on each side that disconnect one wheel or the other, so the opposite one keeps driving and makes a turn. It does work very well. And the E is for electric start. It has a 110 volt electric starter motor, plug extension cord in, good to start. Personally, I haven't had to use electric start yet. I tried it in the shops to make sure it worked here and everything, but we had our first snow here in northern Utah a couple days ago, so it's only the first time I had the chance to use it. And it started on about the second or third pull after sitting for a couple months when I got home. Again, I actually purchased this snowblower a couple months ago from a small local dealer. I did not buy it from one of the big box stores. I bought it from a small dealer that I buy a lot of small engine parts from. They treated me well on it, and I preferred to deal with them rather than the big box. Just personal preference, but they treated me good on it. So I did a lot of research about various models out there, and the Toro was the one I decided to go with. Okay, that said, the model that they had in stock was a 928, which is a 28 width auger on it, 9 horsepower. I don't have if you have a fairly flat driveway, double wide driveway, I think 9 horsepower is going to be ample. We usually don't get much more than about 6 inches at a time here in northern Utah down the valley. If you get much more than that, yeah, you might want to step up. The biggest reason why I went with the 10 horsepower versus the 9 is because there's a couple of areas around my yard, my property here, where I have to throw the snow twice. I have to throw it from the side of my house out to the front driveway, and then from the front driveway off onto the lawn, and then from the side into the backyard and approach the shop, and then from there off onto the lawn. So where you have to handle up 2 times, where that snow stacks up, it's like throwing concrete. So they told me they thought the 9 horsepower would be adequate. For a couple $100 more, I opted to go with the 10 horsepower. They had to order it in special for me. It took a couple days, is all I got from their local warehouse. I would have loved to have gone up to the 11 horsepower. They offer this in a 9, 10, and 11 horsepower, 928, 1028, and 1128 model significations. It was quite a jump up. I think it was about $500 more to go up to the 11 horse. And the 11 horse is a Briggs motor. The 9 and the 10 are actual Toro motors. Granted, yes, they are import motors, or engines rather. Say what you want, never anything anymore is going to be import in one part or another. That's just the way it is with America being a consuming-based country rather than a producing country anymore. That's a topic for a whole other discussion. But anyway, they hold quite good tolerances depending on the price point in which the companies are having them produce them at. Toro hold pretty tight tolerances and pretty tight specifications. The Chinese can do that given that criteria and that price point they have to hit. So overall, I'm happy with it. I've worked on a lot of import engines, some better than others, but I haven't been into this one, but I've heard good things about it. I've worked on some other Toros motor or engines that are imports, and I have no problems with them. Like I said, other than they're not made in America, but that's a topic that's a whole other topic. This particular machine is set up with, you have on the right side, you have your auger engagement, the left side is your drive. You have 6 forward speeds and 2 reverse speeds. The nice thing about this is once you engage the auger and then the drive, you can release your hand off of the auger, so you have your drive basically with one hand, and you can change the deflector angle and the chute angle in motion, which is very nice because if I'm coming around the back of my side of my house to my front, I'm changing the angle to compensate for my front driveway. I played around with it a little bit. It works very, very well. I do have some in-use video that I'll piece into the video here, into the review. My son filmed me real quick while I was just doing some in-action shots. The wind was blowing really bad, so it was blowing back in my face more than I would like it, so I was trying to keep the deflector angle down low, which compounded the amount of snow that I had to handle twice. In all honesty, it was probably a good test for it, so I wasn't too upset about it. Okay, continuing on the side over here. Side over here, you have a primer. Usually, you push that a couple times. You can hear the fuel flow through the carburetor, pull through the tank through the carburetor. You've got your on-off switch, your choke, and your throttle. Oil, fuel, recoil pull rope starter. Here's your forward speeds, 2 reverse, 6 forward, 2 reverse. Your hand warmer switch. Let's talk about either using the auger and then the drive. You can do it in either order. There's a catch mechanism, so if you want to engage the drive first and move up to the snow and then hit the auger, you can hear it and feel it click back in. You can release with your right hand and it will stay engaged. In order to turn, either in forward or reverse, you simply, if you want to make a right hand turn, you squeeze the lever underneath for the right, and it releases the right tire, continues to drive the left, and drives it around the circumference of the angle in which you're turning. Same thing, opposite. When I did get these, I had a little bit more, I like the adjustment on the left one, a little more so than the right, so I had to I readjusted a little bit. Just didn't care for the way they had it set up. I wanted a little bit more free play. As far as when you're driving these, I've read through the manual, and it states that when you start getting slippage is usually when you need to adjust these. I've found it seems to be right with about 3/16 to 1/4 inch of free play before you need any real resistance on it. It seems to be the sweet spot on it. Also, I almost forgot, here you have a fuel shutoff valve on this. It turns the fuel off from the tank of the carburetor. It's right above the recoil starter, between the choke and the throttle across there. It's a very quiet engine. The chassis is very well built. It uses a good heavy gauge. Let me see what the thickness here of this 95 thousandths on the which is about 11 gauge sheet metal. Yeah, about 11 gauge sheet metal for the chassis, for the blower housing. All of the main structure. It's also gusseted very firmly between the drive housing back here and the auger housing. It has adjustable and reversible shoes, wear shoes. So once you wear through the bottom side, you can actually flip them over and readjust them. Ideally, you do not want the bar dragging on the concrete. What I've found works best is to take a piece of cardboard, fairly dense cardboard that will compress a little bit but not too much. Set it underneath on level concrete, set it underneath the wear bar, and then adjust your shoes down to where they make contact with the concrete. Tighten them down, you should be good to go. It should keep you just off the concrete so you're not dragging and wearing out that bar. Another nice aspect of this particular snowblower that I really liked is they have what they call a anti-clog chute. So you've got your primary to feed into your secondary impeller, and also, in case you're unfamiliar, snowblowers always seem to blow better to the right than the left. The reason for that is because that's the direction the secondary impeller is spinning, and so when you have the impeller going off to the right, it's in that natural flow, that transition where it's coming around and discharging it from the chute. When you have it round to the left position, it's changing direction. So instead of the snow coming around this way, it still has the momentum behind it, the force behind it. When it's coming around, it has to hit and then change direction going out to the left. So generally, whenever you have to throw a long distance, it's always better to throw it off to the right than the left. I'm pretty sure every snowblower I've ever worked on, has been that way. I haven't run across one. If there is one out there, I stand corrected, but I have not seen one. Anyway, on their anti-clog chute, it's basically a secondary chamber here. So as that secondary impeller is spinning at high RPM, it's throwing some of the snow back down into it. If it cannot discharge it out the chute, rather than back it up, like most do, especially wet, sticky, some of the high moisture content snow, it will stick into the chute. This here redirects some of it back down into the main primary auger to be pulled back up into the secondary. Like I said, I had one snowstorm on this, and where I had to throw it twice. I had probably about a good 10 inches, maybe a little more, not much, but it was packed down, and it pulled the RPM of the engine down just a little bit. This is a 302cc, the 10 horsepower is a 302cc engine. It pulled the RPM down a little bit, very slightly, and did not change the distance which the snow was throwing. It did very well. I was impressed. So I kind of pushed it a little bit to see how it was going to do. The auger on this is also serrated, so if you have hard, icy, or compacted snow, it does a pretty good job of chopping it up in the primary auger before it throws into the secondary high-speed impeller. So it does a very good job. Okay, I'm going to have to turn this around so you can hopefully see the serrations on this primary auger. It does have an aluminum gearbox. I've not seen one of those fail in the years that I've worked on them, on the Toros. On some of the other brands, occasionally. There's also some discussion about the Toros not having shear pins. That is incorrect. On the two stages of the 928, 1028, and 1128, they do have shear pins. That's some misinformation out there on the internet. When I was reading through those on some of the forums I was reading, there was quite a few people that made comment concerned about the aluminum gearbox because the Toro does not have shear pins. Rest assured, shear pins right here and right here. Hopefully they're gold anodized coating on them. Hopefully you can see them here. There's one on each side. They will shear off long before that aluminum gearbox gets damaged. But I'm also here to tell you that with this chute design, this anti-clog chute design, I would be hard pressed to see one of them break. Like I said, I've only got one storm, but I put it through some pretty hard tests, and it didn't even slow it down. Again, I want to talk. There's a lot of discussion going on about plastic chute versus a steel chute, pros and cons. Trust me, these days a lot of things are made out of plastic. In case anybody's been living under a rock, this is a high-impact plastic. I have not seen one of those with these fail, nor have I read anywhere on any of the forums that anybody has had one of these plastic ones fail. They can take pretty good beating. Now on the flip side of that, the steel on most of your older snowblowers, and I contemplated on that. I contemplated buying an older Aaron's, John Deere, something American-made, older. I couldn't find. I looked for a little bit. Couldn't find anything that really caught my attention that wasn't beaten and abused. So I opted, and for the money, I opted to just go ahead and go with the new one that I knew hadn't been beaten and abused. I would take care of it, and it probably last me the rest of my life anyway. And the controversy of the steel versus the plastic. The steel does want to drag, create friction, so a lot of guys are using PAM. People on some of these forums are coming up with their own concoctions and mixtures to coat, almost like a lard, to coat the inside of the metal chutes to keep the snow from sticking, which backs it up and adds to or compounds the problem of the chute clogging. The Toro uses a plastic. Plastic has a natural lubrication just from the mold releases and everything in it. They're kind of a natural anti-clog built into the design or into the plastic. I don't know. I doubt it to be by design. It's probably just nature of the material itself. This does move very, very fluid, very smooth. I had it packed up pretty good with snow. I hit a couple of drifts, and with all the wind blowing while I was blowing, a lot of it was blowing back on. I had snow up over the auger housing here, backing up against the chute, and I was still able to move this very freely. Okay, I took this moment here and pulled this cover back so you could see these composite gears. On the internet, you don't hear on any of the forums of anybody having any problems with these plastic gears. I personally have not seen a problem with them on this particular brand. I have replaced them on another brand. I don't want to go into brand bashing because the brand is not a bad design. It's not a bad snowblower. It's just this particular area where they were trying to compete with Toro, who actually innovated this quick stick. They have a design flaw that does require some problems with problematic gears. You can get on there and Google it and find out which ones I'm talking about, no problem. But the Toro pretty much revolutionized this quick stick. It's been out for at least 7 or 8 years now, maybe a little longer. Very trouble-free, very fluid movement. Even with this area down here all packed with snow, pushing up against where the wind was blowing back, it moved very smoothly. You can see the thickness of these composite gears. Yes, they are composite, but they're fairly thick, they're fairly beefy where the teeth engage. Also down here is a metal lock. You can see where the cable comes over, and that lock is what actually locks your angle for your chute angle. And then over here is your cable with your adjustment for your deflector angle. So there's your adjustment for your lock on the for the chute angle. So anyway, I wanted to go ahead and pull this cover back so I could show you those gears. I could not find anything on any of the reviews. There's a few reviews on this on YouTube on this Toro Power Max snowblower, but I could not find anything where they had pulled the cover off and exposed these gears. So I just wanted to do that really quick, just to give you a demonstration of these gears. Good solid steel base coming up from the house of the chassis to support it. There's no, I mean, you can push and pull on it, you can move around a little bit. For the most part, there's no play in it. And even with this coming out of here full of snow, it moves very smoothly, and it does not try to deflect the support one way or another due to the force of the snow coming out. So, one last thing is on the, it does have its own little, I think they call it just basically just a little shovel to reach down in, or a little poker to reach down in and clear any clogs you might get. It snaps onto the back of the handle back here right underneath the motor, right underneath the engine. I haven't had to use it yet. I just saw it sitting there and caught my eye and I thought I'd point that out. The tires are very aggressive. They grab pretty well. Unfortunately, my driveway, I had a couple of mine and my wife's vehicles backed in and out of it a couple times before I had a chance to actually clear the snow. By the time I got a chance to clear the snow, it had melted a little bit, so it was even wetter than when it first fell. We had the tire marks packed down. It did a pretty decent job. I went from an ATV with a blade where it would usually skim over those packed tire marks. So this really didn't do any better than the blade. But the nice thing about this is it throws it up and over onto my lawn, where with the blade I had to push it onto the lawn, and you can only push so much snow until you have to pick it up and move it over. And I've run out of options there the last couple of years, not last year, but the year before we had a lot of snow. So that's why I opted to go from the ATV to the snowblower. I think it was a good choice. I was questioning it when the wind was blowing the other day, blowing back in my face. I did not have that issue when I was pushing snow, but the snowblower cut my time more than in half. It usually take me a couple of hours because I'd have to push from my house into the street and then away down the side of the street and back up onto the park strip, so I wasn't pushing it out into the streets. And then in the back, same thing. I had to push it back and push it back onto my lawn. With the snowblower, I didn't have to I still had to throw it and handle it twice in two pinch points. But other than that, I was able to throw it from one side. I've got a 3-wide driveway in the front, and I was able to throw it from the side all the way over into my lawn without having to, once I got around the side of my house, I could make one pass and throw the snow once and be done with it. So I didn't have to push it out into the street and then handle it out once I got out of the street. So it definitely cut my time in half. I go through, I think it took me right at an hour to do front and backyard the other day with about a 4-inch snowfall. So I think I've covered everything. One other thing, this model does come with a light on it. I haven't used it in the dark yet. I've played around with it a little bit, and due to the width of the handle versus the auger, and it'll shine down to one side pretty decent. It's not like let's say with ATV I had with the blade. There was times where I was at 9, 10 o'clock at night out here plowing snow, and I had plenty of light. I don't think this is going to put out that much light, obviously, but it does adequate to where you can see where you're going, follow the edge of the seam of the concrete, down the sidewalk. It does an adequate job.